Welcome to my Sig Sauer mosquito reassembly guide. First thing you need to do is install the spacer. Next, install the hammer. Orientate the hammer spring over the top of the post inside the hammer. Place the hammer onto the post. And lock the spring into position in the action casing half right. Install the other spacer.
We are going to
Install the safety lever pin, noting the orientation. And install the safety lever. Again, note the orientation. You can just slide it down like this. And once it's all the way down, you can rotate it underneath the hammer. Now take the hammer strut, that is the mainspring washer, and install that. Install the mainspring. That will leave you with the ball centering. You have to note the orientation, see how it has like a skirt on it. And that's going to go on the end of the mainspring there. Now I'll put that down so you can see about how it will sit. Okay, so now we're going to put that into position. And I'm using a screwdriver without the blade installed. So you'll also note that I actually put the strut too far forward, but I didn't notice it till later, so you'll note that's too far forward. Later you'll see I correct it. Now a piece of ribbon is best here, but I don't have any, so I'm using this wire. But a piece of long ribbon is much easier because you can cut it and it will slide straight out. Here you'll also notice that the hammer strut is now installed correctly. See how far back it is in the hammer? That's the way it should be. Okay, now you're going to take the sear. You note the slots on the sear, and they have a specific place in the action casing half. So you're going to slot that in, just like you see here. And the top of it obviously sits on the top of the hammer. That's what holds the hammer back there.
Next, we're going to put the...
Okay, now we're going to install the left action casing half on top of the other one. You're not going to be able to push it all the way in because you are going to have that piece of wire there, but you can get most of the top there, and just make sure the sear tab orientates correctly so it goes through that slot when you push this all down.
We can now pick this up from
Okay, notice I'm leaving a gap in the bottom there, but everything else is pretty much closed up as much as it can be. And now we need to remove that wire, and we have to be careful when we do this so that everything doesn't fly out, so you're putting a bit of pressure on the bottom there and holding the whole thing together. Again, it would be a lot easier if you were using a piece of ribbon. Okay, now you can squeeze that all together and just put it down carefully, make sure the whole thing doesn't fly open and shoot out. Now we're going to put in the trigger, and we're going to put the trigger in. We rotate it slightly when we put it in so it fits, and then we're going to turn it a little bit back. So see, I put it in at a slight angle, and then I turn it up, and click, it's now in position. See, I can move it around. That works. Okay, now we're going to install the trigger bar. You'll notice mine's polished. That's why there's like a mirror surface. I was trying to make my trigger a little bit slicker. So that goes in underneath there, and it goes over the top of the trigger. It's not technically the trigger pin, but it's part of the trigger mechanism, so make sure it goes in there correctly. Now take the trigger bar spring. See, there's a little hole in the bottom of the trigger bar. It fits in right there. And now we have to get that in, use a pair of pliers or whatever tool you're going to use. Get that in there and push it down and in so it locks in position. Now we can install the slide catch lever and spring. That's the spring. So when you do this, you're going to put the spring onto the little nipple on the left action casing half. See that little nipple there? Slide the spring on there. And then when you take the slide catch lever, there's a little nipple there, which is what the other end of the spring is going to be on. You can see it just here. Rotate it a little bit. There you go. So I usually just push it up like that. You can put your finger on the inside if you want on the other side of the spring, but usually I can just get it to go straight in like that. So just take a look in there and make sure it all sits right. Install the striker ping and the spring. They're part of the integral safety lock. There's another tool that you get with the Mosquito so that you can turn that. And now you're going to install the assembly into the frame. When you do this, make sure that nothing snags and nothing flies off. Also note that the trigger can snag on the front there, so just pay attention as you're rocking this into position. Just push that trigger back a little bit because you haven't got the trigger pin in yet. And then snap it down and into position like that. Now nothing's going to fly off. Take the actual trigger pin, and that's going to go into that hole. Just orientate the trigger so you can see through there. Put the trigger in. You can use the flat blade of a screwdriver or any flat hard surface then to push that in. You can't just do it with your finger generally. There you go. That's a flat end there. Now the trigger is in. Check.
Catch. That's the trigger.
Okay, now we're going to install the magazine catch, the spring and the retainer. I put mine together and slotted in. A lot of them just put the magazine catch in first, then put the spring into the gun, into the frame, and then do the retainer. I've kind of got it figured out these days so I can put the whole thing together in my hand here and push it in, but you'll decide which is best for you. Just don't let that spring fly off and be hard to find. It's hard to replace these parts. You have to call up SIG or a armor smith. So you can see how the mechanism works. It's left or right-handed, which is really nice. SIG's really thoughtful about that. There you go. So that's orientated for a right-handed person. Okay, the decocking lever and the decocking lever spring. Take your decocking lever and install it. See the orientation, and down it goes. You'll notice it goes on the inside of the sear down there. Moves back and forth. Now take the decocking lever spring, and it clicks in just note that where the pin is there. Okay, it clicks in just there. And then you rotate it back a little bit and into the little slot, which I'll show you in just a second here. There it is. And that'll stay in position. Make sure that's all pushed in firmly.
Put the barrel in, so we're going to take the lock.
Okay, now take the lock. Note the orientation. Just drop the lock in there. It just sits there, floats around. And then take your barrel. Notice there's slots on it. That's how the barrel slots into the frame. And you can just push it straight down. You're going to get it just about square. There you go. And the lock can float backwards and forwards there while you're doing this. It won't come out. Install they call it the screw for grip in the manual. It's a strange name. I kind of wonder whether they messed it up, but that's what they call it. So it's got the shorter head and the longer thread of the two screws that you'll have left. Screw that in tight. Now on the other side, you're going to install the takedown lever screw. And you put a little bit of Loctite on it. This one you're not going to tighten up super hard because if you do, you won't be able to rotate the takedown lever. And the takedown lever there that I'm putting in, you'll note that it's keyed. It can only go in one particular way. There we go. And then tighten the other side. Again, do not over tighten it, otherwise you're going to have to back it off. Now the blue Loctite will stop it from coming out, so just remember this isn't particularly holding the gun together, it's holding the takedown lever in place correctly. Too tight, it doesn't work. Little bit, back it off, and there we go. Have it pointing forward in the takedown lever position too, so that you can put the rest of the gun back together later. Now, all we need to do is install the left and right grip, and that just slots underneath there. Same for left-handed or right-handed. And then there's just 2 screws for each side. Go ahead and put those in. Don't over tighten these either, because remember that the grips are plastic, and if you put too much pressure on, you'll crack them at the point where the screw head is. So, firm but not too hard.